I kind of like to call them life-ending thoughts rather than suicidal thoughts because that word in itself just feels so heavy. And a lot of people that I know have also struggled with life-ending thoughts at some point in their existence, and at varying degrees, of course. Like, I'd rather die than go to work today, or it's rooted in something much deeper than that. And a lot of times when it is, something much deeper that's causing the thought, people feel so ashamed and feel so scared and so like they're wrong and gross and bad for having these thoughts, when in reality they're just a result of some experience, and that's how your body and mind is needing to cope in the moment. I had been seeing a therapist for about 3 weeks when she recommended to my mother that she take me straight to the hospital because she didn't think that I would be safe, and she thought that I would hurt myself if I wasn't under supervision, if I was alone. And she was absolutely right. I was not in a stable state of mind. I was cutting myself a lot at that point. There was not one portion of my wrist that wasn't covered in scars or blood or cuts. It was just really intense, and I had definitely been making plans in my head of killing myself and how I would do it, and that's when it gets really serious. When you've started plotting out your death, that's when they really take it very seriously and try to get you help, because then the only next step is to pursue those plans. And this is kind of where I hit rock bottom, which one of my biggest pieces of advice is for everyone to hit rock bottom as soon as possible. I met my ex-boyfriend him and I met under a tree. I was literally meditating in McCarran Park. We did really similar work and we're both in the wellness space, and went to Thailand, Bali, and Japan, and I went on my first yoga teacher training during this time, and falling in love with him was another one of those like kind of pitfalls on my journey. So I started self-harming again, which is something that I did in high school and middle school. It was really intense. I remember him being really confused about why it was happening, and me just like crying a lot and overreacting about little situations and thinking he was mad at me all the time, because I have never had like decent relationships with men. So it was so confronting to have a man who was just so kind to me and just so open to hearing me talk and constantly holding space for me. I was like, I just literally don't know what to do. Like, can I feel safe? Like, is this okay? And I remember I went to his family's house for Thanksgiving right before we flew out to Thailand, but I drank that night, and I felt so uncomfortable also because I was healing my relationship to my family. I self-harmed really bad that night because I was drunk. I got in the shower and it was not good, and I just passed out kind of drunkenly, and my wrist was bleeding, and he came into the room and saw it, and he was just so terrified. And I'm like, definitely tell someone if you are having life-ending thoughts now, or if you feel out of control of the thoughts in your mind. I have learned to accept them and talk about them openly and not be ashamed of them, because I know that there was a part of me that was hurt and started resorting to life-ending thoughts as a way to cope, because it made me feel momentarily safe, like I could escape from them. And I fully recognize that, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see why those are there, but I'm not going to indulge those thoughts anymore. I tried to end my life several times. Nearly like every single week I overdosed on Xanax. And when I finally realized I had to be real with myself was when I had tried to end my life one night. It didn't work. The next morning, I didn't realize that I was opening the retail shop that I worked at, and I got charged a $600 fine for not opening it. And I was like, fuck, like I'm now not only letting myself down, but I'm letting other people down. And I literally just tried to end my life, and now I'm just gonna clock into work like nothing happened. Like, I cannot keep living like this. And it was from that point that I canceled my student loans before they fully went through. I dropped out of college. I lived on my mom's floor. She had just moved to LA and didn't have any furniture. I lived on the floor with her, working at Zara full time.
An argument by analogy. If you've been watching my channel for some time, you'll remember that I crossed swords with a video game champion named Cheese. Why did I reach out to this guy and interact with him? Not because he's a video game champion, but because he is a video game champion who had expressed ambivalence about the meaninglessness of his life. He had reflected on camera, on YouTube, and during live streams that he thought he was, to some extent or in many ways, really wasting his life and wasting his potential playing this same video game again and again and again. He saw my video, he made a response, and he dramatically closed his response by pondering aloud on what it would mean ultimately to lead a more meaningful life. So he was somebody who had reached the point of questioning the meaninglessness of his own life. But what did he in fact do? He stopped playing one video game and he started playing another. He had become famous enough and skilled enough at playing this one video game again and again and again. It was one of the Mario Brothers video games, that he was having tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of viewers show up to watch him play. He actually had an income. He had some degree of money coming in from this habit. And when he switched to another video game in another genre, his audience disappeared. Now he has just 2,000 people showing up. And I'm in a position to say, from experience, 2,000 viewers doesn't pay the bills, right? He switched from one meaningless life to another, right? If you have 5, 10, 15 friends in life, you will have known people who similarly come to the point of realizing they have to negate something that's wrong in their lives, but they seem to lack the intelligence or the initiative to really think through what would be right. In the strange career of Hitomi Mochizuki, over 6 years now, we have seen her in this same way, struggling to negate all of the things wrong with her life. She makes one dramatic video after another, announcing that she's turned a corner, that she's come to a profound new realization, and looking back on how suicidal she was in the recent past, right up until making this video, but now everything was going to be different. And you can go ahead 2 years and find another one of those same videos where she's reflecting on how suicidal she was, how depressed she was, but now she's come to this new realization, so on and so forth. It's very easy to justify running down any given corridor. It's very easy to justify running off a bridge even to your doom if all you're thinking about is what it is you're running away from. You're not thinking about what it is you're running toward. To some extent, I sympathize. The problem is I only sympathize with Hitomi Mochizuki's struggle when it is in this way stated negatively, when she's talking about her sorrow and her struggle to get away from it. As soon as we switch to the positive frame of reference, as soon as we talk about what she is doing, what she does believe in, what she is doing with what she thinks a meaningful life might be, what it is she thinks is better than focusing on fancy cars and fancy clothes. It may be that for her, it seems like a profound new insight when she reached that point of realization that owning fancy clothes would not make her happy. Sadly, what she replaced owning fancy clothes with is just as terrible, just as despicable, or even worse, in the same way that I look at a guy like Cheese, who reached the point of questioning why he was spending his life playing this one video game, Super Mario, over and over and over again, but he ended up replacing it with another video game habit just as bad, or in fact, even worse.
There are just so many things that I think we all take for granted that make life so beautiful, because all we're focusing on is clothes and cars and money and shit that doesn't fucking matter. So I'm sorry I'm cursing a lot lately. When I'm passionate I curse, but yeah, I just want everyone to adopt this idea of oneness with themselves, with this earth, with each other. And I think that'll really help end comparison, help end need and greed and everything like that. Just find oneness with yourself.
Hitomi Mochizuki is preaching a form of religiosity that is bad and evil and wrong, and it destroys people's lives. And I think all of you in the audience would think that she should be a target for criticism if she were a white man wearing a suit and tie. I have a playlist of videos on this channel. Stop treating women like infants. I think we really have a moral responsibility to criticize Donald Trump's daughter the same way we would criticize Donald Trump's son or Donald Trump himself. These are all political figures. They all need to be cross-examined this way. I think the type of religious influence Hitomi Mochizuki has over her audience in the tens of thousands and indeed in the hundreds of thousands is really something dangerous, bad, and evil and wrong that deserves to be cross-examined and excoriated with all the same seriousness that we would apply to a conventional male religious leader, and maybe more, precisely because it is bundled up in this appealing, secular, and sexy package. Hitomi Mochizuki sells an app where she will guide you through meditation. Sam Harris sells an app where he will guide you through meditation. Hitomi Mochizuki's preaching of meditation deserves to be criticized, cross-examined, excoriated with all the same seriousness that I myself have applied in past videos to the teaching of Sam Harris. And yet, if we're being honest, if we had to choose between the two of them, which one is more dangerous? Is it the form of watered-down Hinduism for white people represented by Sam Harris, or watered-down Hinduism for white people peddled by Hitomi Mochizuki? I would say Hitomi's version is much more dangerous. And why? Precisely because she's offering people a way out of their suffering. Precisely because she is presenting it in this narrative form where she's talking about her own escape, her running away from her own demons, whether that be eating disorder, suicidal thoughts, her family struggles, and it is wrapped up in this seemingly secular, sexy package. Hitomi Mochizuki, YouTube's tragic beauty. Most of you clicked on this video thinking I was just going to call her dumb. The problem is that what she's doing here on YouTube is not just dumb, it's dangerous.
I mean, really, people like to disrespect my crew, but the fact is that you know my name and I don't know you.